There is a kind of exhaustion that sleep does not cure, a weariness that does not come from the body, yet is not purely emotional either. You wake up, move through the day, do what must be done, fulfill responsibilities, meet expectations, and still feel as if something inside you is constantly being drained. It feels like the mind is never fully present, as if there is a silent, constant tension running in the background, a low-level pressure that steals clarity, strength, and direction. You are not falling apart. You are not lazy. You are not faithless. Yet something inside remains tired. And just maybe, the problem was never a lack of faith. Maybe it was never a lack of effort. Maybe you were simply spending mental energy in places where Jesus would never spend his. Look closely and you will notice a pattern. Some people live with very little external chaos, yet their inner world is filled with confusion, anxiety, and mental noise. Others live surrounded by pressure, conflict, opposition, and demand, and still remain centered, lucid, and steady. Jesus lived entirely in this second group. His life was not calm, it was not protected, it was not quiet. There were confrontations, there was persecution, there was misunderstanding, there were constant urgencies pulling at him from every direction. And yet, one thing is never recorded about Jesus. We never see him mentally fragmented. We never see frantic urgency. We never see impulsive reaction. There is something here that almost no one notices. Before we go further, I need to say this clearly. At the end of this teaching, there will be a prayer, but it will not be an emotional moment. It will not be a desperate plea. It will be a conscious repositioning, a practical decision, a deliberate alignment of the mind, the focus, and the inner posture with what Jesus actually taught. Not something for now, something for after understanding. Because when the mind aligns with truth, prayer stops being supplication and becomes direction. What hurts you most is not the problem itself. It is the amount of time you spend thinking about it. It is the volume of energy you give every single day to things that are not under your authority. Thoughts that spin without producing solutions, inner dialogues that repeat without generating decisions, emotions that consume strength without creating movement. This drains you. This exhausts you. This makes you sick quietly. And Jesus understood this. You may have been taught to monitor behavior but not thoughts, to control actions but not inner narratives, to pray about circumstances but not about where your attention lives. And here lies the silent error. Most of the energy you lose is not going outward into the world. It is being wasted inwardly, inside mental processes that never arrive anywhere. Jesus noticed this constantly, and when he asked people questions like, "Why do you think this way?" he was not asking a moral question. He was asking a question of government. Matthew 9:4 says, "But Jesus, knowing their thoughts, said, 'Why do you think evil in your hearts?'" He does not correct the action first. He corrects the thought that consumes energy before the action even exists. The human mind works as a system of attention. Where attention goes, energy follows. Modern psychology calls this cognitive cost. Neuroscience shows that mental rumination consumes the same neural circuits that would otherwise be used to solve real problems. In other words, thinking without deciding is biologically exhausting. Jesus taught this practically long before science had language for it. When he says in Matthew 6:27, "Which of you, by worrying, can add 1 cubit to his stature?" he is not merely speaking about anxiety. He is revealing a principle. Worry is energy expenditure without return, movement of the mind without direction, and that creates spiritual fatigue. Observe the pattern. Jesus never enters unnecessary debates. He never compulsively justifies himself. He never explains himself to those who are not ready to hear. In John 8, when they attempt to trap him with accusations, he remains silent. That silence is not passivity. It is mental economy. It is dominion. Proverbs 4:23 says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." In the Hebrew context, guarding the heart means guarding the center of decisions and thoughts. The invisible problem is this: you are reacting more than you are governing. Reaction consumes energy. Government organizes energy. Jesus did not react to chaos. He positioned himself above it. When the disciples panic during the storm, he sleeps. Not because he ignores danger, but because he does not hand his mind over to it. Mark 4:38 makes this unmistakably clear. The chaos was outside. His mind was in order. Today, most people live with their minds hijacked by stimuli, expectations, guilt, future projections, and unresolved memories. This creates internal fragmentation. You think about many things at once, but you are fully present in none, and this exhausts you. Jesus calls this a divided mind. In Matthew 6:22-23, he says, "The eye is the lamp of the body. If your eye is good, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness." The eye here is focus, attention, what the mind looks at repeatedly. Maybe your life is not stuck because of lack of opportunity. Maybe it is stuck because of excess mental dispersion. Maybe you don't need more information. Maybe you need less energy leakage. Jesus did not accumulate stimuli. He selected. Luke 5:16 says, "But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed." This was not religious ritual. It was mental recalibration, a return to center. Science confirms this today. Silence, focus, and intention restore the nervous system. They reduce cortisol. They increase clarity. They strengthen decision-making. Jesus practiced this as discipline, not exception. He taught by example. When something important was about to happen, he did not accelerate. He withdrew. Because whoever governs the mind does not get dragged by the rhythm of chaos. The common mistake is trying to change life without changing attention management. You pray, you ask, you wait, but you continue feeding your mental energy to the same triggers, the same worries, the same inner stories. Jesus never taught transformation without consciousness. Romans 12:2 says, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." Renewal is not emotion, it is internal reorganization. Jesus did not come only to relieve pain, he came to teach how not to recreate it. When he heals, he often says, "Go and sin no more." This is not moral threat, it is mental instruction. Do not return to the pattern that made you sick. The pattern always begins in the mind. Proverbs 23:7 says, "As a man thinks in his soul, so is he." You lose mental energy when you try to control what is not yours, when you relive the past without learning, when you anticipate the future without acting in the present. Jesus always brought people back to conscious presence. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble. Matthew 6:34. That is energy management. That is dominion. There is a war happening in the mind, but it is not won by force. It is won by positioning. Jesus never fought intrusive thoughts. He ended them with truth. In the wilderness, he does not negotiate with temptation. He does not debate impulse. He responds with direction. It is written. In Scripture, the word is not sound. It is command. It is closure. It is the ending of mental cycles. Perhaps you are tired because you think too much and decide too little. Perhaps you are exhausted because you are trying to solve internally what can only be resolved by posture. Jesus did not ruminate possibilities. He discerned and acted. In John 11, before raising Lazarus, he does not rush. He waits. because internal timing mattered more than external pressure. And here is the point almost no one sees. It is not the problem that steals your energy, it is your mental positioning in front of it. Jesus ruled his mind because he knew where not to place attention, and that changes everything. Understanding fatigue is not enough to end it. Awareness alone does not dismantle patterns. Jesus never stopped at explanation, he always moved people toward decision. This is where most transformation fails. People recognize themselves in the teaching, they nod, they feel seen, they even feel relieved, and then they return to the same internal posture. Not because they do not want change, but because the mind continues to operate under the same invisible mechanism. Jesus was not impressed by desire alone, he always looked for alignment. That is why in the Gospels, he rarely begins by fixing the external problem. Before healing, before delivering, before multiplying, before intervening, he confronts something deeper, the way a person is internally positioned toward their own life. This is where most people get lost. The issue is not lack of faith, it is not lack of prayer, it is not lack of biblical knowledge. The issue is that the mind continues to function in the same mode it always has, even after truth is heard. That is why so many people pray, fast, seek, understand, and yet return to the same emotional, mental, and existential place. Jesus exposes this mechanism clearly when he meets the paralyzed man at the pool of Bethesda. John 5:6 says, "When Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, 'Do you want to be made well?'" At first glance, the question sounds absurd. Of course he wanted to be healed. He had been there for 38 years. But Jesus was not asking about the problem. He was asking about internal disposition. Because there is a silent mechanism that keeps people trapped in cycles. The mind adapts to chaos. It begins to operate inside dysfunction as if it were normal. Modern psychology calls this cognitive habituation. The brain adjusts to repeated patterns, even painful ones, and starts treating them as baseline reality. Jesus taught this long before neuroscience existed. Every kingdom divided against itself will not stand. Matthew 12:25. He was describing an internal system, a person who desires something new while continuously feeding the same thoughts, words, and reactions. This contradiction drains energy. A person believes in God but thinks like someone who expects nothing, prays for change but reacts as if defeat is inevitable, reads scripture but narrates their life through fear, guilt, or self-pity. This creates constant internal friction, and friction consumes energy. Proverbs already revealed this structure. As a man thinks in his soul, so is he. This is not poetry, it is architecture. When Jesus says, "Do not be anxious," Matthew 6:25, he is not offering emotional advice, he is offering a change of internal government. Anxiety is what happens when the mind tries to sit on a throne it was never meant to occupy. Watch Jesus under pressure. Crowds press him, disciples misunderstand him, religious leaders accuse him, needs emerge constantly, and still, he does not live in survival mode. Mark records a revealing detail. Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. This is not devotional trivia, it is a regulation practice. Jesus did not start the day solving problems, he started the day establishing center. The mechanism that sustains exhaustion works in the opposite direction. People begin the day already pulled by demands, notifications, memories, expectations, and worries. The mind enters survival mode immediately, and whoever lives in survival cannot govern, only react. That is why Jesus taught, "Sufficient for the day is its own trouble." Matthew 6:34. This is not spiritual avoidance, it is focused presence. Psalm 131 reveals the same principle. "I have calmed and quieted my soul." Notice the wording. The soul does not calm itself, it is calmed. That is conscious action. That is inner government. Jesus exposes the same issue when he confronts Martha. "You are worried and upset about many things." Luke 10:41. The problem was not service, it was dispersion. Mary chose to sit and listen, not because she was more spiritual, but because she was more centered. A non-dispersed mind preserves energy. A fragmented mind depletes it. Science now confirms this. Attention is a finite resource. The more fragmented it becomes, the greater the mental fatigue. Jesus taught this when he said, "If your eye is single, your whole body will be full of light." Matthew 6:22. Single eye means unified focus. Light-filled body means energetic life. The mechanism that keeps people stuck is subtle. They try to change outcomes without changing daily mental posture. They want peace but stimulate internal conflict. They want clarity but feed themselves excess information. They want direction but create no space to listen. Jesus never lived this way. Before major decisions, he withdrew. Before the cross, he entered Gethsemane, not to escape but to align will. "Not my will, but yours be done." Luke 22:42. This is mental dominion at its highest level. Here is the transition point. Understanding the mechanism is not enough. Awareness alone changes nothing. Jesus never left people merely informed. He always led them to decision. This is where the cycle actually breaks. Jesus did not teach people to treat the mind like an open room where every thought can enter, sit down, and decide the direction of the day. He taught government. The turning point always appears when Jesus reveals a distinction that changes everything. You can have thoughts without being governed by them. You can feel fear without obeying it. You can be tired without negotiating your identity with exhaustion. When Jesus says, "Watch," Matthew 26:41, he is not giving a devotional suggestion. He is issuing a command of sovereignty. Observe before you become. Most people lose mental energy because they live in automatic response. Stimulus arrives, the mind interprets without filter. Emotion rises, the body reacts, words are spoken, decisions are made, regret follows, the cycle closes. Jesus dismantles this cycle by inserting one missing layer, the space of watchfulness between thought and action. He practices this constantly. When accusation comes, he does not rush to respond. When pressure rises, he does not accelerate. When urgency screams, he does not fragment. He observes, he discerns, he chooses. That is government. That preserves energy. That changes destiny. The specific teaching that dismantles daily mental energy leakage is simpler than it seems, but it requires maturity. Jesus taught that the mind needs an anchor of truth so it is not dragged by every wave of sensation. That is why in the wilderness, facing temptation, he does not debate, he does not negotiate, he does not analyze. He answers with direction. It is written. This phrase is not religious ritual, it is a cut, a closure. Truth taking command of the internal dialogue. Where the mind wants infinite conversation, Jesus ends the cycle. Most people do the opposite. They treat thoughts as if they were wise counselors. But many thoughts are just noise, unhealed memory, anxiety projection, fear disguised as logic, pride disguised as caution. Noise drains energy. So what does Jesus do practically? He does not try to think better, he changes the center of government. He chooses obedience to truth over obedience to stimulus. Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. Matthew 4:4. The mind is always feeding, always. It feeds on fear or on truth, on comparison or on direction, on urgency or on trust. What feeds your mind determines how much energy you have to live. A poorly fed mind lives in scarcity. Scarcity of peace, scarcity of courage, scarcity of consistency. Here is the practical, daily, repeatable way Jesus lived and taught without turning it into theory. 3 movements: pause, name, establish. Pause interrupts the automatic. Name reveals what is happening without drama. Establish chooses truth as government. This can happen in 30 seconds, in the middle of the day, in the middle of chaos. When you notice energy draining through anxiety, do not fight anxiety. Do what Jesus did. Pause internally, just long enough to return to center. Name it, I am being pulled by worry. Then establish, I choose trust and action within today. That is Matthew 6:34 in practice. That is dominion. When guilt and self-accusation drain energy, do not enter the mental courtroom. Jesus did not teach self-punishment, he taught alignment. There is therefore now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. Romans 8:1. Pause, name, I am condemning myself. Then establish, I repent where needed, but I do not accept condemnation as identity. This preserves energy and restores direction. When control drains energy, trying to manage people, outcomes, timelines, perceptions, do the same. Pause, name, I am trying to control what is not mine. Then establish, your will be done. Matthew 6:10. And trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Proverbs 3:5. Not as slogans, but as decisions. This cuts rumination. This reduces useless mental expenditure. There was another silent drain Jesus mastered: unnecessary speech. Energy is stolen not only by thoughts, but by words. He who guards his mouth preserves his soul. Proverbs 13:3. Many people are exhausted because they explain too much, defend too much, justify too much, argue too much. Jesus did not do this. When dragged into accusation, he writes on the ground. He speaks only what is necessary. This is not performance, it is authority. Whoever speaks compulsively proves they are being governed by stimulus. So the same practice applies to speech. Before responding, pause. Name, my mind wants to discharge. Establish, let my words be few and true. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. Matthew 5:37. Clarity, energy conservation, authority. And now the most important shift. Transformation becomes sustainable only when you change the questions you ask yourself. The question that drains energy is, why is this happening to me? The question that creates dominion is, what is trying to govern me right now? Jesus asked this kind of question constantly. Why are you afraid? Mark 4:40. Not humiliation, orientation. Identification precedes government. That is why Jesus says, remain in me. John 15:4. Remaining is practice, not event, not emotion. It is repeated return to center, repeated choosing of truth over noise. Over time, this repetition rewires the mind, it reshapes the heart, it transforms life. Not because problems disappear, but because they no longer sit on the throne. There is a moment when exhaustion stops being about circumstances and reveals itself as an identity issue. Not who you say you are, not what you believe doctrinally, but who is actually governing you when pressure arrives. Jesus understood this distinction with surgical clarity. Most people attempt to manage life by managing behavior. Jesus managed life by establishing identity. That is why he never began with rules. He began with belonging. Follow me. Not fix yourself, not understand everything, not try harder. Follow me. Identity precedes obedience. This is where many believers unknowingly bleed energy. They attempt to live with spiritual responsibility without living from spiritual identity. Responsibility without identity produces pressure. Identity produces authority. Jesus never lived under pressure. He lived under purpose. Pressure comes from reacting to expectations. Purpose comes from knowing who you are sent by. In John 5:19, Jesus says something radical. The Son can do nothing by himself. He can only do what he sees his Father doing. This is not weakness, this is clarity. Jesus did not wake up asking, what do people need from me today? He woke up aligned with one reference point. What is the Father doing? This single alignment eliminated massive mental noise. Most exhaustion comes from answering too many voices. Cultural expectation, family pressure, internal insecurity, religious guilt, unspoken comparison. Each voice pulls attention. Each pull consumes energy. Jesus answered one voice. That is why crowds did not govern him. That is why urgency did not manipulate him. That is why rejection did not destabilize him. When identity is settled, reaction loses power. This is why Jesus could disappoint people without anxiety. In Mark 1, after healing many, crowds search desperately for him. The disciples say, "Everyone is looking for you." That sentence would crush most people. But Jesus responds, "Let us go somewhere else, to the nearby villages, so I can preach there also. That is why I have come." He does not apologize. He does not over-explain. He does not bend. Why? Because his identity was not sourced from demand. Reactive living always drains energy. Reactive living says, "I must respond to what is loudest." Jesus lived responsively, but to the Father, not to noise. There is a difference. Reaction is involuntary. Response is chosen. Jesus chose response. This is where identity becomes practical. If you do not know who you are, you will try to earn stability through performance. Performance burns energy. Identity generates it. Jesus did not perform for approval. He moved from approval. "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." Matthew 3:17. Notice the timing. This declaration comes before miracles, before sermons, before confrontation. Identity was established before assignment. Many people reverse this. They seek identity from results. They seek worth from usefulness. They seek peace from productivity. And this creates a brutal cycle. When results drop, peace drops. When usefulness feels threatened, anxiety rises. When productivity slows, identity shakes. Jesus never lived like this. That is why he could rest while storms raged. That is why he could sleep while disciples panicked. He was not resting because conditions were safe. He was resting because identity was settled. Reactive living always keeps the nervous system activated. Fight, flight, fix, explain, defend. This state cannot produce peace. Jesus introduces an entirely different posture. "Learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." Matthew 11:29. Rest here is not inactivity, it is regulated being. Gentleness is strength under control. Humility is clarity about position. Together, they form internal stability. This is why Jesus was unshaken by insult, unmoved by praise, unafraid of loss. He did not live to protect image. He lived to fulfill assignment. Image maintenance drains energy. Assignment focus restores it. This is where most mental exhaustion hides. People are exhausted not because they are doing too much, but because they are guarding an image that Jesus never asked them to maintain. An image of competence, an image of spirituality, an image of strength. Jesus dismantled this illusion constantly. He touched lepers. He ate with sinners. He disappointed religious leaders. He did not negotiate his identity with public opinion. This is why he could say, "Whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for me will find it." Matthew 16:25. Losing life here does not mean self-destruction. It means releasing false identity constructions. False identities are heavy. They require constant reinforcement, constant defense, constant validation. True identity is light. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. Matthew 11:30. Jesus was not offering a motivational phrase. He was describing an internal operating system. Now we come to a crucial transition. Once identity is settled, government becomes possible. Without identity, government becomes control. With identity, government becomes alignment. This is why Jesus did not teach self-control first. He taught self-location. Who do you say that I am? That question was not about theology, it was about perception. Because how you perceive Jesus determines how you perceive yourself. If Jesus is only Savior, you live forgiven but unstable. If Jesus is Lord, you live governed. Governed people waste far less energy. They know where authority ends, they know where surrender begins. Jesus never tried to control outcomes. He trusted the Father with results. He focused on obedience. Obedience is far less exhausting than control. Control requires anticipation. Obedience requires presence. Presence conserves energy. This is why Jesus continually returned people to the present. Do not worry about tomorrow. Not because tomorrow does not matter, but because tomorrow does not belong to your mind today. Identity anchors you in now. Reactive people live ahead of themselves. They live in imagined futures, replayed pasts, projected fears. Jesus lived where grace operates. Grace operates now. Today, salvation has come to this house. Today. When identity is clear, you no longer need to rush to prove anything. Speed becomes choice, not compulsion. Jesus was never late. Even when he arrived after Lazarus had died, he was still on time. Why? Because timing is not dictated by anxiety. Reactive people hurry. Governed people move deliberately. This distinction changes everything. When identity governs you, you stop negotiating your worth with outcomes. You stop explaining yourself unnecessarily. You stop absorbing every emotional projection. You stop carrying what is not yours. And suddenly, energy returns. Not because life got easier, but because you stopped living divided. Jesus describes this when he says, "No one can serve two masters." Division is exhausting. Identity resolves division. Now comes the practical implication. If you want sustainable mental and spiritual energy, you must shift from reactive living to governed living. And governed living always begins with identity reaffirmed daily. Not emotionally, not dramatically, but consciously. Jesus did not wake up wondering who he was. He withdrew to remember. This is why silence mattered, not to escape noise, but to restore identity clarity. When identity fades, noise grows louder. When identity is clear, noise loses authority. This prepares us for the next movement, because identity alone does not end leakage. Practices must support posture. Jesus paired identity with rhythm, and rhythm is where modern life collapses. That is where the final dismantling happens. Identity establishes government. Government requires rhythm to remain stable. This is where most people collapse. They hear truth, they understand posture, they even experience moments of clarity. But clarity without rhythm fades. Jesus did not live by moments, he lived by patterns. Modern life worships intensity. Jesus practiced sustainability. Intensity burns fast, sustainability endures. This explains why so many people encounter God powerfully and then return to exhaustion weeks later. They touched truth, but never changed rhythm. Jesus never taught constant output. He taught faithful presence. Look closely at his life. He healed and withdrew. He taught and rested. He confronted and returned to silence. Mark 6:31 records him saying, "Come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest." This was not optional, it was strategic. Jesus understood something modern culture ignores. Without identity, calling becomes consumption. Many people are not tired because they are disobedient. They are tired because they are disordered. Disorder drains. Order restores. Jesus lived ordered internally so he could move freely externally. Notice something important. Jesus never lived rushed. Even when crowds waited, even when needs were urgent, even when death was involved, he moved deliberately. Rushing is a symptom. It reveals fear of missing something, fear of losing control, fear of disappointing others. Jesus did not live under those fears, because his rhythm was anchored in trust. This is why Sabbath mattered to him, not as law, as alignment. The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. Rest was not reward, rest was foundation. Modern people treat rest as something earned. Jesus treated rest as something required for clarity. Without rest, attention fragments. Without rest, discernment weakens. Without rest, identity blurs. This is why exhaustion often feels spiritual. It is, because spirit, soul, and body share rhythm. Jesus honored this integration. He slept, he ate, he walked, he withdrew. None of this was accidental. He did not live disassociated. Many people try to live spiritually while ignoring physical and mental rhythm. This creates division, drains energy. Jesus lived integrated. That integration produced authority. This is why he could say, "I do nothing on my own, but speak just what the Father has taught me." Notice the phrase, "I do nothing on my own." That is not passivity, that is alignment. Alignment reduces friction. Friction drains energy. Now we arrive at a painful truth. Most people are exhausted not because life is heavy, but because they are resisting the rhythm life requires. They override limits, they ignore signals, they glorify overextension. Jesus never did. When tired, he rested. When crowded, he withdrew. When pressured, he slowed. This was not weakness, it was wisdom. Rhythm is how identity stays embodied. Without rhythm, identity becomes abstract. This is why Jesus did not teach spirituality divorced from daily life. He taught prayer, but he also taught sleep. He taught fasting, but he also taught feasting. Balance was not compromise, it was intelligence. Now consider this. Most mental exhaustion is not created by hardship, it is created by inconsistency. Irregular sleep, irregular silence, irregular boundaries. The nervous system cannot stabilize without rhythm. Jesus intuitively lived what neuroscience confirms today. Rhythm regulates the nervous system. Regulation restores clarity. Clarity supports obedience. This is why Jesus could hear clearly. Noise did not dominate him. Noise dominates people without rhythm. Modern life trains people to live constantly stimulated. Screens, notifications, opinions, urgency. Stimulation fragments attention. Fragmentation drains energy. Jesus practiced subtraction. He removed himself from noise before noise could remove him from himself. This is the hidden discipline. Not adding more practices, removing what fractures attention. Jesus did not accumulate habits, he simplified life. Few words, clear direction, uncomplicated loyalty. This simplicity preserved energy. Simplicity is the sister of peace. Jesus lived simply internally so he could act powerfully externally. Now comes the question, what does rhythm look like practically? Not religious schedule, not rigid routine. Living rhythm means predictable return to center, regular withdrawal from noise, intentional limits, repeated realignment of attention. Jesus withdrew daily, weekly, seasonally. This layered rhythm kept him whole. Most people only withdraw when burned out. Jesus withdrew to prevent burnout. That is maturity. This is why he could endure pressure without collapse. Rhythm makes endurance possible. Without rhythm, even truth becomes heavy. Truth without rhythm becomes demand. Demand creates pressure, drains energy. Jesus avoided this by pairing truth with pace. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened. Notice he does not say, come and do more. He says, come and learn my rhythm. That is what yoke means, a shared pace. My yoke is easy. Easy does not mean effortless. It means ill-fitting rhythm exhausts, well-fitted rhythm sustains. Now here is the confrontation. If your life feels constantly heavy, it may not be because of opposition. It may be because your rhythm is incompatible with your calling. Jesus never asked people to live faster than grace. Grace has a pace, and grace never rushes. This prepares us for the final dismantling. because even rhythm can be sabotaged if the inner narrative remains unchanged. The deepest drain still hides in one place: the stories you tell yourself while living your days. This is the deepest layer, because even with faith, identity, and rhythm aligned, one thing can still silently drain everything: the story you repeat inside. Not spoken aloud, not questioned, but believed. Most people think exhaustion comes from what they do. It rarely does. It comes from what they tell themselves while doing it. Jesus addressed this layer constantly. He did not only confront actions, he confronted interpretations. "You have heard it said, but I tell you." That sentence reveals his strategy. Same circumstance, different internal story. This is where freedom or fatigue is decided. Two people can live the same life rhythm, serve the same calling, face the same pressure, and one feels light while the other collapses. The difference is not strength, it is narrative. Many people live under invisible scripts. I must prove my value. I cannot fail. If I slow down, I'll lose everything. I am only safe when I perform well. These narratives create constant tension. Tension drains energy faster than effort. Jesus never lived under those scripts. He did not wake up needing to prove he was the Son. At his baptism, before any miracle, before any ministry, the voice came, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." Notice the order. Identity was affirmed before performance. This destroyed the need for inner striving. This is why Jesus could serve without self-pressure. Many people do the right things while telling themselves the wrong story. They pray, but internally say, "If I don't pray enough, God will withdraw." They rest, but internally say, "I don't deserve this rest." They obey, but internally say, "I must not disappoint." That inner voice never rests, and what never rests eventually exhausts the body. Jesus taught something radical. The eye is the lamp of the body. He was not talking about vision, he was talking about perception. How you see determines how you feel. If your perception is harsh, your body lives under threat. Threat activates survival. Survival drains energy. This is why many spiritually sincere people live anxious. Their theology is correct, their inner narrative is not. Jesus did not live monitored by God. He lived connected to God. Connection relaxes, monitoring pressures. Now here is the hard truth. Many people confuse conviction with accusation. Conviction brings clarity. Accusation brings heaviness. Jesus never accusated. He corrected, invited, realigned. The voice that constantly shames, pressures, and threatens is not divine. It is exhausting. This is why Jesus said, "My peace I give you." Peace was not an emotion, it was an internal environment. Peace is what happens when the inner story matches truth. Now consider this carefully. You do not experience life as it is. You experience life as you interpret it. Change the interpretation, and the same life becomes lighter. This is why Jesus healed many people by first changing what they believed was possible. Do you want to be healed? That question exposes narrative. Some people are loyal to their exhaustion because it supports their story of worth. Jesus disrupted those stories. He did not reinforce identity built on pain. He offered identity built on belonging. Belonging removes pressure. Pressure creates fatigue. This is the final dismantling. Exhaustion often remains not because the life is wrong, but because the inner narrator is cruel. Jesus invites a different narrator. Abide in me. Abide means stop performing, stop proving, stop narrating life through fear. Remaining stabilizes. When you stop narrating yourself as unsafe, your nervous system softens. When your nervous system softens, energy returns. When energy returns, obedience becomes lighter. This is the full circle. Faith without identity creates striving. Identity without rhythm creates chaos. Rhythm without narrative renewal creates pressure. Jesus addressed all three. That is why he was whole. This is not about doing more. It is about telling the truth inside yourself, the truth that God already told. You are my beloved, no performance required. From that place, life becomes sustainable, calling becomes lighter, and faith finally feels like rest.